Priyanka Chopra's performance in You Barfi is often described as transformational, and rightly so. In this film, she portrays Jilmal, a young woman with autism, and does so with such subtlety and depth that it redefined what audiences expected from mainstream actors. Her acting in this role wasn't just about portraying a character. It was about living it, breathing it, and becoming so immersed in the emotional world of Jilmal that viewers felt as though they were watching a real person, not a performance. This kind of transformation is rare, especially in an industry where glamour often overshadows nuance. What makes Priyanka's acting in You Barfi truly transformational is the way she completely stripped away the layers of her star persona. She didn't rely on dialogues or melodrama. Instead, she internalized Jilmal's world. Her facial expressions, body language, and even her silences spoke louder than words. In a role where overacting could have easily taken over, Priyanka maintained restraint and emotional truth. She avoided caricature and focused instead on conveying the character's authenticity. Her mannerisms were meticulously studied. Never forced, always organic. The way Jilmal blinked uncertainly, avoided eye contact, or held onto her bag tightly in stressful moments. It all felt real because Priyanka had invested time and effort to understand autism beyond surface-level depictions. To prepare for the role, Priyanka reportedly spent time with children and adults on the autism spectrum, learning from their behavior, speech patterns, and reactions to various environments. This dedication to understanding not just the medical definition, but the human experience of autism is what elevated her performance. It wasn't an impersonation, it was embodiment. She didn't just wear Jilmal's clothes, she walked in her shoes. Moreover, Priyanka's appearance in the film was a radical departure from the glamorous roles she was known for. Gone were the designer clothes, makeup, and stylized hair. In their place stood a vulnerable, childlike woman in simple attire, with unstyled hair and minimal makeup. This physical transformation was symbolic of the internal shift that had taken place. Priyanka was unafraid to shed her image, and knowing that the strength of the performance would speak louder than appearances. A particularly striking aspect of her transformation is how she conveyed Jilmal's emotional world without relying on conventional cues. The love Jilmal feels, her jealousy, her confusion, and even her moments of joy are conveyed with extraordinary subtlety. For instance, a simple scene where she reacts to someone trying to separate her from Barf shows her panic, fear, and deep attachment, all in a matter of seconds, without a single word spoken. This kind of acting requires not just skill but empathy. It requires an actor to stop performing and start feeling, which is precisely what Priyanka achieved. In interviews, Priyanka has admitted that playing Jilmal was emotionally draining. There were days when she left the set overwhelmed, carrying the weight of the character with her. That is the hallmark of a performance that isn't just professional. It's personal. Her willingness to emotionally invest herself in a character so different from the roles she had done before was brave and commendable. She took a risk by stepping outside the commercial comfort zone and committed to portraying someone who is rarely given a voice in cinema, especially with such respect and authenticity. Another reason her acting in You Barfi stands out is the chemistry she shared with her co-stars, particularly Ranbir Kapoor. Their on-screen bond didn't rely on words or dramatic romantic moments. Instead, it was built through shared silences, small gestures, and emotional understanding. Priyanka's ability to respond to Ranbir's actions with subtle expressions, whether it was joy, confusion, or distress, showed her command over nonverbal communication, a skill that few actors master with such precision. The audience's reaction to Priyanka's performance also speaks volumes. Many people who have loved ones with autism praised her for portraying the condition with dignity and realism. Her performance sparked conversations about neurodiversity and the need for better representation in media. That is what transformational acting is supposed to do, not just entertain but enlighten and engage. It is important to recognize that this transformation didn't happen overnight. Priyanka Chopra is known for her discipline and her commitment to constantly growing as an artist. Barfi was not her first serious role, but it was perhaps the most demanding in terms of emotional labor and physical transformation, and she rose to the challenge beautifully. In conclusion, Priyanka Chopra's acting in New Barfi goes beyond performance. It is a complete emotional and physical transformation. It showcases her depth as an actor, her courage as a performer, and her compassion as a human being. By stepping into the shoes of Jalmal, Priyanka not only brought authenticity to the screen but also brought awareness to countless viewers. This role wasn't just another chapter in her filmography. It was a landmark, a reminder of what cinema can achieve when actors commit not just their talent but their soul. In a Barfi, Priyanka Chopra's portrayal of Jalmal was grounded in an emotional authenticity that left an indelible mark on audiences. Emotional authenticity in acting goes beyond just delivering lines or crying on cue. It is about genuinely connecting with the emotional reality of the character and conveying that connection so truthfully that the audience experiences those emotions themselves. Priyanka didn't just act like Jalmal, she internalized her, embraced her worldview, and allowed her emotions to surface in the most delicate and sincere ways. That rare level of honesty in performance is what elevated her role from impressive to unforgettable. Jalmal, a young woman with autism, is not an easy character to portray. Her emotional world is nuanced and often hidden behind behaviors and expressions that are not typical. Priyanka had the enormous task of representing that inner emotional life, one filled with love, confusion, fear, and attachment, without relying on traditional acting techniques like loud expressions or melodramatic gestures. Instead, she made Jalmal's emotional journey feel natural, layered, and intensely real. What made her performance so authentic was her complete immersion into the psychological state of her character. She didn't portray Jalmal's emotions in a generalized or exaggerated way. Every smile, every moment of hesitation, every flicker of discomfort was portrayed with precision and truth. One of the most moving aspects of Priyanka's performance was the way she handled Jalmal's expressions of love and attachment. These were not expressed in words or grand romantic gestures, but in small, meaningful actions. The way she reaches for Barfi's hand or holds onto his shirt quietly communicates volumes about her longing for connection and security. Such scenes didn't need dialogue because Priyanka's expressions and body language carried the emotional weight so effectively. The most striking element of her emotional authenticity was in the silence. Jalmal doesn't talk much, but Priyanka ensured that the audience always understood what she was feeling. Her eyes were often filled with unspoken questions, moments of recognition, or sheer innocence. That kind of emotional expression, conveyed without dialogue, is one of the most difficult skills for an actor to master. It requires deep empathy and emotional vulnerability. Priyanka let her guard down in front of the camera. She didn't perform emotions, she lived them. And the audience could feel that. Another key aspect of her emotional authenticity came through the consistency of her performance. At no point in the film did her portrayal feel like a performance. There was no sudden switch in character or jarring inconsistency in her emotional reactions. Whether Jalmal was experiencing joy, confusion, or fear, Priyanka stayed deeply rooted in the character's emotional logic. For instance, in a scene where Jalmal is frightened by separation, her panic is portrayed with such rawness and vulnerability that it is impossible not to feel her fear as if it were your own. Priyanka doesn't cry to be dramatic. She cries because the moment demands it. There's a fine line between acting and overacting, and she walked that line with remarkable grace. Her emotional depth also contributed to the way audiences related to Jalmal. Instead of evoking pity, she evoked empathy. Viewers didn't feel sorry for her. They felt connected to her. That's a rare achievement. It's easy for films that deal with disability or trauma to manipulate emotions for sympathy. But Barfi never does that, largely because Priyanka never allows it. She plays Jalmal with dignity, intelligence, and emotional truth. The result is a character who is not defined by her disability but by her emotional complexity. It's also important to recognize how Priyanka balanced emotional intensity with restraint. She didn't go overboard in trying to evoke reactions. There was no unnecessary drama, no loud breakdowns. Even in scenes of distress, She kept Jilmal's reactions grounded in the character's reality. That level of restraint is difficult to achieve, especially when the subject matter is inherently emotional. It speaks to Priyanka's control as an actor and her deep understanding of who Jilmal really was. What's remarkable is that this emotional authenticity didn't come from a place of self-glorification or performance pride. It came from genuine empathy. Priyanka reportedly spent time researching autism, interacting with people on the spectrum, and learning how they navigate the world emotionally. This preparation was evident in every frame. She wasn't guessing what Jilmal might feel. She understood it and conveyed it with honesty. The emotional authenticity of her performance also elevated the overall emotional tone of Barfi. The film, while being lighthearted and whimsical in many ways, is also a deeply emotional journey of love, acceptance, and human connection. Priyanka's sincerity added soul to the story. Without her grounded performance, the film would have lacked the depth that made it resonate so strongly with audiences. In many ways, Priyanka Chopra redefined what it means to be emotionally present in a role. She didn't perform Jilmal's emotions for the audience to see. She allowed us to feel them with her. That is the essence of emotional authenticity. It's not about displaying feelings, it's about making those feelings real, so real they bridge the gap between screen and spectator. In conclusion, Priyanka Chopra's portrayal of Jilmal in Barfi is a masterclass in emotional authenticity. She connected so deeply with the emotional life of her character that it became impossible to separate the actor from the role. Her performance reminds us that great acting doesn't always come from dramatic flourishes. It often comes from stillness, from truth, and from the courage to be emotionally bare. In Barfi, Priyanka Chopra shattered a multitude of stereotypes that had long been entrenched in mainstream Indian cinema, especially concerning female leads' star image and the representation of disability. Her role as Jilmal, a young woman on the autism spectrum, was not just a performance. It was a statement that questioned the norms of commercial cinema, the limitations placed on actresses in the industry, and the tendency to overlook characters with disabilities in meaningful roles. By choosing this role and delivering it with sincerity and emotional depth, Priyanka broke barriers and reset expectations for what leading women in Bollywood could do and should be allowed to do. For a long time, mainstream Hindi cinema has boxed actresses into a narrow range of roles, primarily ornamental, romantic, or melodramatic. A typical heroine was expected to look glamorous, dance around trees, and act as a complement to the hero's arc. Even when given substantial roles, there was often a heavy reliance on conventional beauty, charm, and screen presence. Priyanka Chopra, known at the time for her striking looks and glamorous persona, could have continued comfortably along that path. She had already proven her box office appeal and acting skills in films like Fashion and Kamini. But with Barfi, she made a bold choice that few A-list actresses would have considered. She chose to disappear into a character who was neither glamorous nor traditionally heroine-like. Jilmal doesn't wear stylish clothes. She doesn't deliver fiery monologues or engage in dramatic confrontations. Her appeal lies in her innocence, her vulnerability, and her emotional complexity. Portraying such a character required Priyanka to abandon every traditional hallmark of a leading lady. She wasn't afraid to appear awkward, misunderstood, or emotionally raw. This decision alone was a break from stereotype. For an actress to take on a role that subverts the idea of beauty, sensuality, and control, and to be recognized and praised for it, is revolutionary in a film culture obsessed with surface appearances. Furthermore, by portraying a woman with autism, Priyanka challenged how differently abled characters are written and performed in Indian films. Too often, disabilities are either exaggerated for sympathy or minimized for the sake of making characters more palatable. Priyanka, however, refused to play Jilmal as a victim. She approached the role with empathy and care, showing that disability is not a lack of strength, but a different way of experiencing the world. Jilmal's character had agency, depth, and emotional power. Priyanka portrayed her not through pity but through compassion, and in doing so, redefined how female characters with disabilities could exist in film as individuals worthy of love, respect, and storylines of their own. Another stereotype that Priyanka broke with the Barfi was the notion that commercial success depends on sticking to formulaic content. A Barfi was not a conventional blockbuster. It was a gentle, poetic story told through silent glances, music, and emotion. It didn't have high-octane action scenes, over-the-top melodrama, or catchy item numbers. Yet, it was a major critical and commercial success, and a big part of that was due to Priyanka's performance. She proved that audiences are more than ready to embrace emotionally honest storytelling and nuanced characters, provided the performances are rooted in truth. Her decision to do a role that was not designed to flatter or glorify her image showed that a star's power does not lie in perfection, but in relatability. There was also a social dimension to the stereotypes she challenged. In a culture where mental and developmental disabilities are still surrounded by stigma, playing Jill Mill opened up conversations. Many viewers who had family members or acquaintances on the autism spectrum said they felt seen and respected through the character. Priyanka brought dignity to a subject that is often marginalized or treated with insensitivity. Her performance sparked a deeper understanding among audiences and emphasized the importance of inclusivity in storytelling. This was not just a performance, it was an act of representation that had real-world resonance. In doing all this, Priyanka also set an example for other actresses and actors. She demonstrated that it is possible to maintain a successful career while taking creative risks. She showed that an actor doesn't have to play safe to be loved or respected. In fact, it is these very risks that lead to lasting impact. After Barfi, more actresses began to explore offbeat roles, perhaps feeling encouraged by the critical acclaim and audience appreciation that Priyanka received. Her choice broadened the scope of what could be imagined and attempted in female-led roles. Her journey with Barfi is also a reminder that true artistry lies in evolution. Rather than relying on a tried and tested formula, she reinvented herself, and in doing so, helped reinvent a part of the industry. She moved beyond being a glamorous icon to becoming a storyteller. Her commitment to the character of Jill Mill not only defied expectations, but also set new ones for what audiences should demand from their films and from the stars they admire. In the end, Priyanka Chopra's role in Barfi was more than a performance. It was a quiet revolution. She took a character that could have easily been written off or misrepresented and turned her into the emotional core of the film. She broke down stereotypes of women, of disability, of commercial cinema, and gave audiences a character who was real, imperfect, and unforgettable. That is the power of fearless acting. That is the power of breaking the mold. Priyanka Chopra's performance in Barfi received widespread critical acclaim, not just for its technical brilliance, but for the emotional weight and humanity she brought to the character of Jill Mill. The film itself was praised for its storytelling, direction, and aesthetic beauty, but Priyanka's portrayal stood out as one of the strongest elements. Her work was recognized across the board by critics, audiences, filmmakers, and advocacy groups for being a rare example of a mainstream actor portraying a character with a developmental disability with grace, dignity, and realism. This acclaim was a reflection of both her artistic growth and the risks she was willing to take to evolve beyond the limitations of stardom. From the moment Barfi was released, reviews began pouring in with praise for how sensitively Priyanka had handled the role. Many reviewers were initially surprised at her casting, given her history of playing glamorous or strong, outspoken characters. But that surprise quickly turned into admiration as they witnessed a quiet, vulnerable, and emotionally rich performance unlike anything she had done before. Critics noted how she allowed herself to disappear into the character, eschewing makeup, high fashion, and even traditional dialogue in favor of body language, small gestures, and expressions that communicated volumes. It wasn't just that she acted differently. It was that she allowed the character to take over, something that not every actor is willing to do. Respected film critics from India and abroad highlighted her ability to carry emotional scenes with minimal words. For example, in many reviews, the scenes where Jill Mill watches Barfi interact with others, often with confusion, jealousy, or longing, were praised as being heartbreakingly real, without any melodrama. Priyanka made the audience feel what Jilmal felt. This subtlety became a key point of praise. Many actors can cry or scream for the camera, but few can maintain character integrity through silence, which Priyanka did masterfully. The restraint she showed was constantly cited as a sign of artistic maturity. She was also applauded for choosing a role that broke from the commercial mold. In an industry where mainstream actresses are often expected to look glamorous and play romantic interests in predictable narratives, Priyanka took a bold turn with Jilmal. Critics saw this as a turning point in her career, proof that she was not afraid to challenge herself or the industry's expectations. This courage was rewarded not just in words but in accolades. She received numerous awards and nominations, including recognition from Filmfare, IFA, and Screen Awards, among others. While Barfi was India's official entry to the Oscars that year, much of the praise surrounding the selection centered on Priyanka's contribution to its emotional core. Beyond the technical aspects of her performance, critics also focused on the impact her role had on the broader conversation around disability in cinema. Many acknowledged how rare it was to see a character with autism portrayed so honestly and respectfully in Indian films. Instead of turning Jilmal into a stereotype or a caricature, Priyanka treated her as a real person with her own thoughts, feelings, and desires. This level of integrity resonated not just with film reviewers, but with advocates, psychologists, and people from the autism community who appreciated the representation. The praise she received was not superficial. It was grounded in a genuine recognition of the social responsibility she had taken on and fulfilled with care. In international reviews, Priyanka's performance also gained attention. Publications like The Hollywood Reporter and Variety noted that her role was central to the film's success. While Ranbir Kapoor was rightly praised for his performance as Barfi, it was Priyanka who brought balance to the narrative. Her performance added texture and emotional gravity that prevented the film from becoming just another romantic comedy or feel-good story. The international acclaim helped further establish her reputation as a serious actor, one capable of delivering on both artistic and emotional fronts, even before her full-fledged Hollywood career began. Another aspect that critics appreciated was the on-screen chemistry she developed with Ranbir Kapoor. It wasn't a typical romantic chemistry. It was subtler, rooted in emotional dependency and silent understanding. Critics highlighted how Priyanka managed to establish that chemistry without relying on traditional cinematic cues like flirty dialogue or physical intimacy. She built connection through glances, through the way she followed him, the way she reacted when he was close or far. It was acting that required deep internal work, and the film's reception proved that it paid off. What also added to the critical acclaim was the long-lasting impression the role left. Even years after the release of Barfi, Priyanka's performance as Jilmal is often cited in discussions about her best work. It is seen as a benchmark for actors who want to take on challenging, socially significant roles. The critical response didn't fade with time. It endured, becoming a defining moment in her career. In summary, the critical acclaim Priyanka Chopra received for Barfi was not just about the novelty of the role or the departure from her usual image. It was about how thoroughly and sincerely she committed to the character. She wasn't just performing, she was giving a part of herself to the role. Critics saw that, audiences felt it, and the film industry respected it. Her portrayal of Jilmal remains one of the most critically celebrated performances in recent Indian cinema, not because it was perfect, but because it was honest, human, and deeply affecting. And Priyanka Chopra's role as Jilmal in Barfi not only marked a turning point in her own career, but also served as a source of inspiration for future roles in Indian cinema, particularly for female actors seeking more meaningful, complex, and unconventional characters. The courage and conviction with which she stepped away from the expected tropes of a Bollywood heroine opened up possibilities for others in the industry to break free from formulaic roles and explore deeper, character-driven narratives. Her choice proved that mainstream success and artistic exploration are not mutually exclusive. In doing so, She helped redefine what leading actresses could aspire to and achieve. Before Barfi, the landscape of Hindi cinema offered few substantial roles for actresses that didn't revolve around romance, glamour, or family drama. While a handful of films each year attempted something different, the majority still leaned on tried and tested formulas. Priyanka, at the peak of her stardom, could have continued doing high-profile commercial films with standard characters. Instead, she made a conscious choice to play a mentally challenged young woman, one without conventional dialogue, dance numbers, or romantic glamour. That single choice had a ripple effect. It sent a message to producers, directors, and fellow actors that audiences were ready for more layered and human stories. The most inspiring aspect of her decision was that it wasn't based on commercial strategy. Taking on the role of Jelma was a risk, both financially and professionally. There was no guarantee that the audience would embrace her in such a non-traditional avatar. But her success proved that viewers crave authenticity and emotional truth. That realization gave other actors the courage to step out of their comfort zones. After Barfi, more mainstream actresses began to take on roles that were offbeat, emotionally intense, and socially relevant. It helped reshape the casting mindset in the industry, encouraging directors to write more nuanced parts for women that extended beyond love interests or supporting roles. Priyanka's performance also encouraged a broader shift toward roles that address underrepresented communities and stories. Her portrayal of a woman on the autism spectrum wasn't just powerful, it was respectful, empathetic, and grounded in research. This encouraged filmmakers and actors to approach roles dealing with mental health, disability, trauma, and marginalized identities with more seriousness and sensitivity. Rather than using such topics as mere plot devices, they began to be treated with the depth they deserve. In this way, Priyanka's role set a new standard for authenticity in performance and subject matter. For younger actresses, especially those looking to break into the industry or establish themselves, Priyanka's role in Barfi became a point of reference. It showed them that meaningful roles could be found or created, even within the mainstream framework. It gave them the confidence to seek scripts that were rich in substance. And it validated the idea that one doesn't need to compromise artistic integrity for visibility or success. It became increasingly common for emerging actresses to cite Barfi as one of the films that influenced their career choices, not just because of its content, but because of the impact Priyanka's work had on the cinematic conversation. Moreover, Priyanka's performance in Barfi showed that taking creative risks can actually expand an actor's range rather than limit it. Far from being boxed into similar roles afterward, she went on to portray an Olympic boxer in Mary Kom, a troubled pop star in Dil Dakandu, and a powerful antagonist in Eat Raz. The success of Barfi demonstrated that audiences respond positively when actors challenge themselves, and this emboldened others to explore roles that didn't conform to industry stereotypes. Even her later transition to international projects in Hollywood was arguably built on the credibility she earned from roles like Jilmal. Roles that showed she was more than just a glamorous star, she was a serious artist. Her portrayal also influenced the types of stories that were greenlit. After Barfi, producers became more open to scripts that centered on characters with psychological or neurological differences, or those with emotionally complex inner lives. Films such as Margarita with a Straw, Hichki, and Dear Zindagi, all led by women and focused on mental health, disability, and emotional growth, arrived in the years that followed. These films were not direct results of Barfi, but Priyanka's success helped prove to the industry that such stories could not only be told but be successful and impactful. She helped normalize the idea that characters who are different deserve to be leads, not side plots. Furthermore, Priyanka's performance broke the illusion that actresses must always look conventionally beautiful on screen to be appreciated. She played Jelmal with unkempt hair, simple clothing, and no makeup, yet received more praise than she had for any of her glamorous roles. This shift in perception inspired actors to prioritize depth over appearance, and it subtly reshaped beauty standards in storytelling, allowing for more realism in character presentation. In summary, Priyanka Chopra's role in Barfi was more than a brilliant performance. It was a catalyst. It encouraged both her peers and upcoming talent to take artistic risks, push boundaries, and challenge cinematic norms. She demonstrated that storytelling driven by truth and empathy has the power to connect with audiences at a deeper level, and that choosing difficult, unconventional roles can ultimately be a career-defining move. The inspiration she provided through Barfi continues to echo in the performances and choices of actors across the industry, making it one of the most influential roles in recent Indian cinema. Priyanka Chopra's role as Jilmal in Barfi is one of the most significant examples in Indian cinema of humanizing disability through a mainstream performance. In a film industry that has long struggled with accurately and respectfully portraying differently abled individuals, her depiction stood out not only for its artistic merit, but for the empathy and dignity it brought to the character. She didn't play Jilmal as someone to be pitied or laughed at, but as a fully formed human being with emotions, desires, fears, and a unique perspective on life. Through this role, Priyanka helped change the conversation around disability in Indian film, making it more compassionate, inclusive, and thoughtful. Traditionally, disability in Bollywood has often been treated with a lack of nuance. Characters with mental or physical disabilities were either shown as tragic figures meant to evoke sympathy or as comedic elements meant to entertain. These portrayals often reduced individuals to their condition, stripping away their individuality and humanity. What Priyanka did in Barfi was the exact opposite. She gave her character depth, sensitivity, and soul. She showed that a person with autism is not defined solely by the condition, but by who they are as a person. One of the most powerful elements of Priyanka's portrayal was the way she connected the audience to Jilmal's internal world. She didn't rely on overt explanations or exaggerated behaviors. Instead, she conveyed Jilmal's emotions through subtle gestures, facial expressions, and quiet interactions. This approach allowed viewers to see her as someone with real emotional depth, the innocence in her eyes, her reactions to situations, her attachment to Barfi, and her responses to fear or happiness all reflected genuine emotional complexity. This created empathy, not just sympathy. Viewers weren't asked to feel sorry for her. They were invited to understand her. Priyanka's preparation for the role also played a crucial part in the authenticity of the portrayal. She reportedly spent time with children and adults with autism, observing how they communicate, react, and interact with their environment. This research was reflected in how she approached everything from body language to speech. Jilmal's movements were hesitant but deliberate, her eye contact rare but meaningful, and her need for routine and security deeply relatable to anyone familiar with autism. Instead of turning these traits into dramatic focal points, Priyanka let them quietly shape Jilmal's identity, making her portrayal feel deeply human rather than clinical. One of the most touching aspects of the film is the relationship between Jilmal and Barfi. Their bond evolves not through conventional romance, but through shared experiences, mutual dependence, and quiet care. This portrayal of love is deeply significant in the context of disability. It challenges the notion that differently abled individuals are incapable of forming romantic relationships or understanding love. Through Jilmal, Priyanka showed that people with disabilities feel love just as deeply as anyone else. She allowed her character to love, to feel jealousy, to want connection, and most importantly, to be loved in return. This depiction was a step forward in normalizing the emotional and relational lives of people with developmental disabilities on screen. Her performance also challenged the audience to question their own biases. Many viewers entered the theater expecting a typical love story or a light-hearted film. What they received was something more profound, a reminder that people with disabilities are not others, but just people with the same needs, emotions, and dignity as everyone else. Priyanka's role helped break down the wall of us versus them, encouraging viewers to see the human before the diagnosis. Another powerful element of humanizing disability in Barfi was how the film avoided turning Jilmal into an object of drama or sympathy. She is not there to make Barfi's character look noble, nor is she used to manipulate the audience's emotions. She exists as her own person, with her own agency. When she feels hurt, we understand why. When she reacts with fear or joy, it feels natural. This level of character development is often missing in portrayals of disability, where characters are typically given minimal backstory or emotional depth. Priyanka made sure that Jilmal's identity was rich, nuanced, and deeply human. Furthermore, her performance helped initiate conversations around the need for better representation of neurodiverse individuals in media. In India, autism and other developmental conditions are often misunderstood, stigmatized, or hidden. By bringing such a character into the mainstream and portraying her with care, Priyanka not only educated but also normalized. She didn't lecture or preach. She simply lived the character truthfully, and that was enough to make audiences more aware, more curious, and more accepting. The impact of her performance went beyond the film industry. Many parents and caregivers of children with autism spoke out about how much the character of Jilmal resonated with their own experiences. For them, seeing someone like Priyanka Chopra, an international star, treat their reality with respect and authenticity was both moving and empowering. It gave visibility to a community that is often overlooked and helped foster empathy in the general public. In conclusion, Priyanka Chopra's portrayal of Jilmal in Barfi was not just an artistic achievement, it was a cultural one. She humanized disability in a way that had rarely been done in Indian cinema before. Through empathy, research, and emotional honesty, she created a character that touched hearts and changed perceptions. Jilmal was not defined by her limitations, but by her capacity for love, trust, and growth. By treating her character with the dignity and authenticity she deserved, Priyanka helped push Indian cinema a little closer toward inclusivity, compassion, and truth.